You're watching All 24 News, world news program coming to you live from the capital Algiers. Next up are the headlines. Massive march in Madrid demands an end to Western Sahara's occupation. Demonstrators are calling on Spain to declassify controversial agreements. Also in our news, 37 years after Algeria helped spark it, the Palestinian State Declaration remains historic. Meanwhile, Gaza sees fresh occupation strikes as UN warns of worsening humanitarian crisis. Coming up next, clashes in Sudan's Darfur and Kordofan displaced 750,000 as Washington readies a roadmap to resolve the crisis. And later on, Russia reports 2 dead in Ukrainian strike on Belgorod. Moscow accuses Kiev of hitting Europe's largest nuclear plant, and Hungary warns of full-scale war risk. The details straight ahead. Hello again and welcome. It's great to have you with us tonight. First up in our news, thousands of Sahrawis and activists took to the streets of Madrid on Saturday, marking the 50th anniversary of the Madrid Accords. The march called for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence, with demonstrators urging Spain to take responsibility for its role in the ongoing conflict. Here is Salman Asif.
People gathered from all directions, youth, women and elders, joined by Spanish and European political figures. Together, they marched through the heart of the capital, calling to an end to Moroccan occupation and reaffirming the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
50 years after the Madrid Agreement, the Sahrawi people, speaking from the heart of the Spanish capital, once again denounced this accord through which our land was divided between the Kingdom of Morocco and Mauritania. Half a century later, the Sahrawi people remain steadfast, firmly rejecting what is called the autonomy plan proposed by Morocco. Today, with the presence of the Sahrawi diaspora, various associations and the solidarity movements supporting the Sahrawi cause, the people are mobilizing from the capital to demand their freedom and independence.
Our goal is clear: to reject the autonomy proposal. We, the Sahrawi people, are not Moroccan, and we demand independence on our own land, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic.
On the 50th anniversary of the ill-fated Madrid tripartite agreement, the demonstrators highlighted the ongoing struggle, rejecting the so-called autonomy proposal and demanding full sovereignty over their territories.
This year marks the 50th anniversary of the tripartite agreement. We see how the resistance continues. Many governments have come and gone. Many prime ministers have taken office. Now Pedro Sanchez has the power to grant sovereignty to a people who demand, above all else, their inalienable right to self-determination.
Chants and slogans filled the main streets of Madrid, through which the demonstrators called for an end to the occupation in Western Sahara, while reaffirming their firm rejection of what is known as the autonomy proposal. 50 years of occupation carried out by Morocco, which since then has divided the people into two. Thousands of Sahrawis living in exile in refugee camps, and the others living in the occupied territories, suffering continuous human rights violations year after year. Here, on the 50th anniversary, on the Madrid tripartite agreement on the legal concession through which Spain handed over the Sahrawi people to Morocco and Mauritania, we remind that this agreement does not exempt Spain from fulfilling its obligations. And once again, we call on Spain to assume its historical and political responsibility. The protest, organizers say, is part of a long and continuing effort, a march in solidarity that would end until freedom is won and full sovereignty is restored over the occupied Sahrawi territories.
On the same occasion, Spanish party representatives joining the march called for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and condemned any attempts to bypass international law, exploit their resources, or deny them their legitimate rights.
At the time, Morocco was seeking to impose its control over the Sahrawi people, while Spain betrayed the will of the Sahrawis and abandoned its historical responsibility, leaving the territory under the tutelage of Morocco and Mauritania. Today it is time to raise our voices to demand the return of the land of its rightful owners, the Sahrawi people who are living in extremely and unacceptable conditions. Furthermore, the European Union has once again failed the Sahrawi people by signing a new agreement with Morocco that allows for the exploitation of Western Sahara's resources without consulting its inhabitants or respecting their right to self-determination. Therefore, we issue a strong appeal to the international community to provide genuine support to the Sahrawi people who have been suffering for 50 years and continue their struggle for freedom and justice.
Fellow Sahrawi comrades, long live the struggle of the Sahrawi people. Today we are in the streets to denounce the signing of the ill-fated tripartite agreements that have been a calamity for the Sahrawi people. 50 years of betrayal, 50 years of suffering for a brotherly people who continue to struggle resolutely for their dignity and freedom. The Sahrawi people's right to national liberation and self-determination is a non-negotiable and inalienable right. It is shameful that the Socialist Party is rolling out the red carpet for imperialism and justifying the fait accompli policies stemming from the Madrid Accords and their extensions, including the joint World Cup bid, which is being exploited to normalize the status quo in Western Sahara. The position of the current Spanish government led by Pedro Sanchez and its public affirmation of support for the autonomy plan under Moroccan sovereignty represents a stain on Spanish political history.
In the same context, at the end of the Grand March in Madrid, demonstrators called on Spain to declassify the 50-year-old tripartite agreements, saying they stripped the Sahrawi people of the right to self-determination and independence and caused decades of displacement and human rights abuses.
Today, November 15th, we gathered in Madrid to express our rejection of the tripartite agreements signed 50 years ago, which have had dangerous consequences that continue to cast a shadow on the situation in Western Sahara. These agreements have led to the continuation of a legal occupation of the territory, deprived the Sahrawi people of exercising their right to self-determination and independence, and caused decades of refuge, suffering and violations. While we raise our voices from Madrid, which hosted the signing of those agreements and was a key party in the process that followed, a large number of Sahrawi political prisoners remain in detention in Moroccan prisons, where they suffer from harsh and inhumane detention conditions, as confirmed by several international human rights organizations.
To another just cause, the 37th anniversary of the declaration of the State of Palestine in Algiers is a landmark moment that put the Palestinian cause back in the global spotlight. The anniversary also honors the Palestinian people's resilience in the face of occupation and their steadfast commitment to their national rights. Here's Karim Mustafawi.
المجلس الوطني يعلن باسم الله وباسم الشعب العربي الفلسطيني قيام دولة فلسطين فوق أرضنا الفلسطينية.
On this day, November 15, 1988, the late leader Yasser Arafat's voice rose from Algeria's Palace of Nations, proclaiming the birth of the State of Palestine with Al-Quds as its capital. This date marked the historic turning in the Palestinian cause. Algeria reaffirmed its unwavering solidarity with the Palestinian people by being the first country to recognize the sovereignty of Palestine, paving the way for over 150 countries to follow suit.
يجب أن نذكر دائما أنه في الجزائر.
We must always remember that the cornerstone of Palestine's recognition is in Algeria. From here, Algeria, the late President Yasser Arafat proclaimed a declaration of the establishment of the State of Palestine in 1988. After that, recognitions followed one after another.
Algeria's independence is not complete without the independence of Palestine, a slogan raised during the Algerian Revolution that continues to guide the nation today, from the proclamation of the State of Palestine to the unification of its factions under the supervision of the President Abdelmajid Tebboune and its advocacy in the corridors of the UN. Algiers' commitment has always been unshakable.
On the anniversary of the declaration of the State of Palestine from Algeria in 1988, we reaffirm our steadfast support for the Palestinian people's right to an independent state. From the declaration of the state to the declaration of reunification, under the auspices of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria remains committed to justice until a fair and equitable solution is achieved.
Since the declaration of Palestine 37 years ago, Palestinians, who have always reaffirmed they will never abandon their national right, continue to endure systematic ethnic cleansing by an occupier that openly defies United Nations resolutions.
In Gaza, the occupation forces carried out raids across several areas of the Strip on Saturday, with Palestinian media reporting large-scale demolitions in Rafah in the south. In another development, Gaza's health ministry announced the arrival of 15 bodies of martyrs released by the occupation on Friday through the Red Cross, part of a prisoner exchange deal. This 13th batch brings the total to 330, with 97 identified so far. Medical teams continue processing the bodies for examination and handover to families. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says over 900 Palestinians have died in Gaza, waiting for medical evacuation. Delays put around 16,500 patients, including 4,000 children, at risk. The organization called for open crossings, free movement of medical teams, and unimpeded humanitarian aid. For its part, Gaza municipality says 700,000 tons of waste have piled up, creating serious health risks. Fuel and equipment shortages are crippling essential services, while 700 destroyed wells have cut daily water supply per person from 15 liters. Gaza's government media office warns the humanitarian situation is worsening as winter sets in, with 1.5 million displaced people struggling without basic necessities. Ottawa adds that heavy rains are making conditions worse, urgently calling for shelter supplies and access to deliver aid. Here's Yasin Arekti now.
Standing ankle-deep in muddy water, Abu Ahmed cries out in despair as his tent collapses under the relentless downpour. Gaza's already devastated displacement camps are once again underwater, leaving families with nowhere dry to stand.
When the pressure built up, the water started sweeping in. Our camp is in a low-lying area, and when it rains, everything floods. The entire camp was badly affected.
We woke up around 2 in the morning to the sound of the rain. Here is the camp. Some people live under tents, others under thin tarpaulins. Suddenly, the rain poured down and water rushed in. It kept raining until 8 in the morning.
Caught off guard by the storm, thousands of displaced Palestinians spent the night trying to salvage what little they had. Children shivered in wet clothes, parents bailed water with their bare hands, and elderly residents sat helplessly as flimsy tents made of tarps and plastic sheets gave way.
The mattresses are soaked. Blankets, pillows, sheets, even the floor. Where we are supposed to sleep now. Where can we go?
Our sheets are soaked. Our clothes are soaked too. Everything we own is wet. We had to stay standing just to keep from drowning.
Authorities warn the crisis will worsen as winter approaches. The government media office says the suffering of 1.5 million displaced people is escalating, while the occupation continues to block aid despite the ceasefire. UNRWA confirmed that flooding is compounding Gaza's humanitarian disaster, calling for unrestricted access for emergency supplies. After 2 years of devastating war that has reduced Gaza to rubble, tent camps stretch across the strip to shelter 2 million people. As rain drenches the ruins, Gaza's residents are trapped between nature's fury and human cruelty, struggling under floods, bombs and unrelenting blockade driven by the bloody thirsty Benjamin Netanyahu's brutal campaign.
With 85% of Gaza schools destroyed, rebuilding education is a massive challenge. Makeshift tent classrooms, stripped down textbooks, and teachers doubling as counselors mean the return to school will be tough. More with Sufyan Kanturi now.
After 2 fierce years of genocidal war, children in Gaza are heading back to school. And this time, the streets are a little calmer. Fewer explosions and more students, especially girls, are gathering makeshift classrooms, hoping to pick up on their education that's been on hold for nearly 2 years.
We confirm that about 82 of school buildings in the Gaza Strip are out of service. With the help of partner organizations, local and international support groups, we have started seriously planning to restart the education process and begin reconstruction by creating temporary schools in the yards of completely destroyed schools or on nearby land.
Inside temporary tents, life is far from normal. Supplies are limited, classes are shortened, and teachers are working around the clock to provide some sense of routine.
We have the right to education and the right to live like all other children in the world. The high cost of school supplies also means some students cannot afford them. All of this affects us. So please save us. Give us decent learning conditions. Now I go to a tent at 6 a.m. and sit on the ground, which is obviously uncomfortable. Before, I had a book where everything was explained in detail. Now, I only have summaries, and important things are missing. This is what makes us suffer.
Logistical challenges and psychological strain are daily realities. Teachers face the double burden of teaching while helping students cope with trauma and the aftermath of the war.
We take into account each student's psychological state. I face the same difficulties at home and I know what they have lived through. That's why I treat every student as if they were my own child. And I try to meet their psychological needs as much as possible. Can they have a notebook or pen? If we can, provide it. We will.
Despite collapsed buildings and constant shortages, both students and teachers show remarkable determination. Every morning they return to these improvised classrooms, committed to learning and teaching. It is a powerful display of resilience, hope, and an unwavering spirit of a community determined to move forward, even in the face of deep scars left by the genocidal war.
Diplomatic sources say the UN Security Council will vote on Monday on a US draft resolution backing President Trump's Gaza peace plan. The proposal would create a peace council to govern Gaza until 2027 and authorize a temporary international stabilization force. In the meantime, occupation forces carried out raids across the West Bank on Saturday, arresting 15 Palestinians and abusing residents during the operations. This comes as the UN says Israel's annexation moves, demolitions, arrests, and settlement expansions violate international law and constitute war crimes.
The Israeli government's claim of sovereignty over the West Bank and its annexation of parts of it violate international law. Images of mosque Israeli settlers carrying out arson attacks in the occupied West Bank are deeply disturbing. The rise in settler violence has been accompanied by an increase in demolitions, property confiscations, arrests, and movement restrictions imposed by Israeli occupation forces, in addition to the continued expansion of settlement. The forced displacement and transfer of part of the West Bank civilian population into occupied territory constitute a war crime.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, Syria's defense ministry says it has identified the launch site of rockets that hit Damascus's Masjid neighborhood, injuring civilians and causing property damage. The ministry vows to pursue those responsible and take deterrent measures to protect the capital and its residents. Over in Sudan, the army says it's regained control of two key areas in North Kordofan, Kazkil and Haj Ahmed, after some heavy clashes with the Rapid Support Forces. Military sources tell local media that the fighting is still intense across several towns, with reinforcements on the ground aiming to push further and take more territory. In Sudan, still, a military source says a Rapid Support Forces drone hit an oil refinery in Jabalain, south of White Nile State. Local reports said that these attacks on oil fields and refineries are aimed at cutting power and causing chaos for the Sudanese people. In the same context, violence in Kordofan and Darfur has forced roughly 57,000 people to flee their homes. Camps in Ad-Daba are receiving hundreds of families from Al-Fashir, many injured or suffering from malnutrition, especially children. The UNHCR says tens of thousands remain missing or trapped in dire conditions, with only about 10,000 having reached Tawila so far. For his part, President Donald Trump's senior advisor on Arab and African affairs, Massad Balouz, says Washington is working on a roadmap to resolve Sudan's crisis. Speaking during a peace agreement event in the DRC, he described Sudan as facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis and said Trump is coordinating with Qatar and other countries to find a solution. The UN Security Council's A3+ group called for continued support for the UN peacekeeping force in Abyei, highlighting its key role in promoting peace and stability between Sudan and South Sudan. Guyana's UN representative Caroline Rodriguez stressed that the mission remains crucial amid the ongoing presence of armed groups, including the Rapid Support Forces.
To ensure it continues to play an essential role in promoting peace, stability, and community reconciliation in Abyei, while reiterating our serious concerns regarding the unrealistic benchmarks that could question the future renewal of UNISFA's mandate. The A3+ voted in favor of this draft resolution, solely to ensure the mission's preservation, as its presence and role are more essential than ever in the current context in Abyei.
To another topical news story, in Russia's Belgorod region, authorities say 2 people were killed and 7 others were injured after a Ukrainian attack. The governor confirmed that 104 drones struck 11 locations, causing the casualties and damage. Russia says Ukrainian forces targeted the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, Europe's largest, damaging power lines and cutting electricity to nearby towns. Meanwhile, Ukraine reports it shelled the Ryazan refinery southeast of Moscow, causing multiple explosions and a large fire. In related news, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán warned on Saturday that Europe is on the brink of a total war. Speaking at a rally in Győr County, he called for peace amid the Russia-Ukraine conflict, urging caution, however, as tensions are rising across the continent.
We are at an anti-war rally. We must hold an anti-war rally when there is a danger. I declare there is a danger of war in Europe. We are standing up for peace, not because we are nice people, but because we have to stand up. Europe is on the brink of war. There is a war between Russia and Ukraine.
To the U.S. now. An F-35 dropped B-12 and B-61 nuclear bombs without warheads at Nevada's Tonopah test range as part of annual training and arsenal checks. President Trump confirmed the U.S. will resume nuclear tests following last month's order to restart testing after a 33-year pause.
It's nuclear testing because other people test. We have other countries that test. We have more nuclear weapons than any other country. I'm the one that renovated them and built some, and I hated to do it, but I had no choice because they have it. We have more. Russia's second, and China is a distant third, but within 4 or 5 years, they're going to be up with us. What I would like to do is I would like to go denuclearization. In other words, where we have a meeting primarily of the top three to cut back on nuclear weapons. That would be a great thing.
And back home, Algiers will host the 13th Algerian-Vietnamese Joint Committee session from Sunday to Thursday. The meeting aims to boost economic and industrial cooperation between the two countries. Vietnam's Deputy Minister of Construction, Nguyen Thanh Van, arrived on Saturday and was welcomed by Algeria's industry ministry officials. Algeria and the UK signed a memorandum to boost cooperation on electronic fingerprinting. The agreement, signed by Algeria's Director General of National Security, Ali Badawi, and UK Minister Alex Norris, aims to enhance police capabilities, share expertise, and strengthen joint efforts against organized crime. The visit also helped deepen ties between the two countries' police forces. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the AMP, Army General Said Changriha, presided over the inauguration ceremony of new health facilities in the 1st Military Region. Speaking to military medical staff, he said the upgrades reflect the High Command's commitment to modernizing the military health system to meet evolving battlefield and health challenges.
أسعد اليوم بزيارة الناحية العسكرية الأولى.
I am pleased today to visit the 1st Military Region to inaugurate new health facilities, including the Regional University Military Hospital in Blida and several new medical departments at the Central Military Hospital. In this regard, it should be emphasized that what has been implemented on the ground within the military health sector, or what is currently being implemented, undoubtedly reflects the special care and intention we pay to this sector, in accordance with the high directives of the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense. These achievements are eloquent testament to our unwavering determination to achieve our planned objectives, particularly with regard to continuing to adapt our military health system to the evolving demands of the battlefield and to address emerging health challenges.
ومع التحديات الصحية الناشئة.
And that's the end of our news for tonight. Visit our social media platforms for the latest updates or catch up on any part you missed. I'm Karim Zachary. Thank you for watching and take care.